The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
What is up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of 8-Bit Suplex. So happy to drop in here on another episode. And I'm going to do a kickflip over here to my co-host, Sandy Gaviria. Sandy, how are you today?
Hey, Josh, I'm good. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in for this week's episode. I am excited to be here for some more action on Impact and video games, the things we love the most. I do want to let you know that this episode today is in support from Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over the technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. Thank you so much. They are supporting our podcast. Please check them out online. I don't know if you guys recall from last week, we actually have a great promo going on where you can get the AEW All Out pay-per-view paid for from the Social Suplex Network. Sorry about that. If you make a purchase online, enter the promo code SUPLEX, you can receive 20% off of your order and free shipping. And of course, if you send us a confirmation of the order to socialsuplex@gmail.com, you will also receive All Out on us. So check it out. You guys still have a couple of days left, and let us know how you like Manscaped.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great deal, great products, especially if, we're in the tail end of summer here. So definitely, I recommend checking out the very least for those of us down here in the South, the crop preserver product. It is the key to make sure that you're not walking like a penguin. But moving on from that, I kind of buried the lead a little bit. Tonight we are going to talk about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and kind of the impact that had on the gaming industry. But before we do that, we had to talk about a different kind of impact, and that's Impact Wrestling. We had a pretty interesting episode this week, Sandy. We're coming off of Emergence. We're trying to set up kind of the road to Bound for Glory, if you will. And so, before we get into the card a little bit, what were your kind of overall talking points, overall thoughts of the show here?
I thought it was a very easy to watch episode this week. It felt more relaxed, like you mentioned. You said on the road. Let's not steal AEW's thing. Gosh, they're on their journey to Bound for Glory coming up soon. So we're setting up the storyline, setting up the feuds, kind of continuing still from what we saw from Emergence and even Slammiversary. There's several feuds that are still continuing from then, and just trying to see where they're going in the future. Very easy, fun. I thought it was a very fun show to watch. Not very wrestling heavy. It was more promo based, just kind of getting those storylines out there, which I can appreciate. That they want these long stories to play out, and I can appreciate that effort.
Yeah, we had an interesting situation where, after Emergence Night 2, pretty much all the feuds that were kind of, for the most part, set up, they kind of finished them off throughout Emergence. They got us set up coming in here for, like you said, we'll use Journey, since Road 2 is also used in Japan for New Japan Wrestling. So we'll come up with our own term. We'll just say the Journey to Bound for Glory. It was a very backstage heavy, very Wrestle House heavy episode, and we'll get into maybe kind of why it is a heavier episode for Wrestle House. But kicking off, we have the match that we were told about that we were getting last week, and that is Sami Callihan, who challenged RVD to a match to show who the better man was, and so we have second week. It didn't. We'll get to that, and I actually my notes spell out exactly what I think about the end of the match. But second week in a row, we're kicking off with Mr. 420 himself, Rob Van Dam, and of course accompanied by Katie Forbes. What did you think about the action here, Sandy?
This was a very Katie Forbes heavy match with
Oh,
the interference.
my very first my very first note was lots of Katie Forbes.
Yeah, very Katie Forbes heavy. One of my big complaints, and we'll kind of get a little bit more into this match, I think. Well, maybe not too much. Is that
Right.
why was the ref allowing Katie to do all these things? She was so involved in the match. Every few seconds, every few spots, she was there. She was getting involved. She was quote unquote helping RVD because a lot of the times it even failed, and Sammy was
Yeah,
able to get the upper hand regardless. But
yeah.
yeah, it was an okay match. I mean,
It
it was there.
it was a match, and I think that's probably the best way to describe it. We talked about how much fun we had watching Rob Van Dam last week, and I think that we are not going to say that this week. And we are the
No.
positive. We are the positivity podcast here on this network, so we're not going to dwell on the negative. We did of course get to see some of your vintage Rob Van Dam moves. We did see the split leg moonsault. We did see Rolling Thunder. Of course, it was reversed by Sammy. And yeah, I mean, Katie Forbes is just all over this match. There was one part, like you mentioned, where she asked Rob Van Dam for a kiss on the apron, which of course led to Sammy Callahan getting the upper hand in the match. And then, I mean, she interferes probably 7 more times. I stopped counting because it was that bad.
It was too much. Now, Josh, I know you and I, when we started the podcast, is when we really started to get into Impact. Do we know why Sammy Callahan is wanting this feud with RVD? Did we miss some previous stuff, some background there, or is it
This
just
happened on episodes previous to when we started covering this, before we started this podcast. And best of my knowledge is Sammy Callahan answered the open challenge to Eddie Edwards. Rob Van Dam interfered. And they had some bad blood going before that, but then Sammy back at Slammiversary was involved in a different feud. But there's a lot of bad blood between Sammy and Rob. And
yeah?
then there's a really funny GIF going around from when Rob Van Dam actually jumped Sammy Callahan on the ramp, and Rob Van Dam is just beating the piss out of him, and the whole time Katie Forbes is just standing there twerking, and it's the most like, it's
I think I've
it
seen
it
that.
feels like a GIF from like 1999, Sandy. It really
Ah,
does. But it was kind of like I got a chuckle out of it, and then I never needed to see it again. And that's kind of what I felt about this match. This will be a match that I will never watch again.
yeah.
And it's not that the guys didn't work hard. It just when you got Katie Forbes and she gets too much Katie Forbes, the match kind of goes pretty south pretty quickly. And like you said before, the match was to decide who was the better man, and we did not answer that question.
No, not at all. And then, of course, we had the beatdown afterwards with Katie and RVD on Sammy. Sammy does win, I believe, with a roll-up reversal. So I think when you do a finish to a match like this, especially with a heated feud, it's gonna continue. We didn't get to see who the better man was. Nobody really got the upper hand on anybody.
No,
So, and especially after that beatdown after the match, we're definitely going to see this 1, 2, maybe 3 more times. Who knows? Maybe it'll just finish off at Bound for Glory. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it wasn't really anything special, unfortunately.
I'll be honest with you, Sandy. If this lasts till Bound for Glory, I'm not going to be too excited about it. But yeah, like you said, it was Rob Van Dam got a roll up, and then it got countered. It was a roll up counter roll up, and I when you have a kind of a blood feud with no stakes on the line, to do that kind of I'm the better man than you because I just so happen to get you in a better roll up because I mean,
Yeah.
and then like you said, they got the beat down on Sammy afterwards, which didn't need to happen. It was just kind of a really weird kind of very bad finish to the match. But you know what? Our spirits were lifted immediately because we went back to Wrestle House.
Wrestle House. Woo!
And Russell House, we left it off last week with the uh, feud coming to a head, or the love triangle coming to the head, between Rosemary, Taya, and Johnny Bravo. And Tommy Dreamer lets Johnny Bravo know, hey man, I sent Josh a private message on Twitter once. No, he didn't say that on the air, but it did happen. No, but
Why did I almost believe that? Damn it, I'm gullible. I'm like, what?
I'm just weaving these in here. I'm just weaving these in here. But no, Tommy Dreamer says to Giant Bravo, "Hey man, your fate is in your hands because you're going to be the special guest referee for this match tonight." And of course, the look of concern, washes over Giant Bravo. What am I going to do? Um, and then there's not really a whole lot of anything else in the first segment of Wrestle House that I can recall. You recall anything else from that first
Kind of
segment?
like a sneak peek.
Yeah, just kind of a foreshadow of the other two segments that we're going to get. And then we come out to Reno Scum, which is, of course, Adam Thornstowe and Lester the Legend in a 2-on-1 handicap against Rhino because Heath did not get into Impact despite the campaigning for the on Twitter. And, this was a match that happened.
You know what? I actually enjoyed it for what it was. I'll never get tired of seeing Rhino. Every time he comes on the TV, I'm like, gore, gore, gore. And like, I will just never stop doing that. I'll be 80 watching old matches like, gore, gore, gore. I love
Yeah,
him.
it almost makes you want to chant EC Dub, right? I mean, that's just kind of, you see Rhino come out and you just want to start chanting EC Dub.
I love him. He's a little, what did Logan call him? A refrigerator, a mini refrigerator with legs. He's just so wide.
That's very pointed. That's good.
I love Rhino. I don't think we've seen Rhino Scum wrestle since we started this podcast, right? This might be the first time.
This is the first action that we've seen. I think the first week that we did this podcast, he got beat down backstage by Reno Scum. But not since then. We haven't seen him. We've seen him cut a couple promos here and there. We've seen Heath kind of pop in and out. But yeah, nothing so to speak. And like I said, I mean, the wrestling was fine. It was a 2-on-1 handicap, and it felt like a 2-on-1 handicap. And my problem with the match is that we do get Heath coming out. But this is a gimmick, Sandy, that if you watch Wednesday Night Wrestling, you saw a month ago when Orange Cassidy dressed up as the cameraman and then jumped in on a beatdown. We get Heath Slater, I should say just Heath. Heath dressed up as a cameraman to come and do his finishing move and get Rhino the win here. That's just, I want to be positive. Heath hit his finisher. He did a great job hitting his finisher.
It looks great.
But man,
it just felt pretty. It felt very underwhelming. And I really think a lot of that has to contribute to there not being a crowd. Who are you going to pop with that surprise? There's no one in the crowd, Reno Scum isn't going to be excited. Rhino had no idea what was happening. And, it's just one of those things. I think a crowd here would have benefited them tremendously. At home, I was like, oh, there's Heath, because it just felt an underwhelming little payoff there.
Yeah.
But you know what? I do like that the commentary actually touched up on a couple of different points. I was so confused about the backstage segments with the money, the Hernandez guy that I guess we've only seen in those promos. Had no idea how he was making this money. I'm like, are they doing drug deals on Impact? What's happening here? Thanks to commentary, though, we were able to find out that he actually has been winning cash from others by winning at arm wrestling. And I think the situation here was that he put it on the line to Reno Scum if they beat Rhino. Was that the whole thing?
So
the cash, right?
The way that I saw it was that he beat Falaba in the arm wrestling match, and then he put it on the line. He said, "Okay, Reno Scum, you beat those guys, you get the money." And obviously they don't get the money. They got cheated because Heath is not a signed wrestler on Impact. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, it's kind of lazy. It's kind of meh. It was a rough start for this week's episode from a wrestling perspective, just because, we expect a little bit more, I think. After the past few weeks, we've had some really good weeks of wrestling.
Yeah.
And I think
Josh, I want to throw out I'm sorry, did not mean to cut you off, but I want to throw out my positivity here before I forget. Not too familiar with Reno Scum. The two guys there actually did not even catch their names, to be honest. I was trying to, and I was like, you just could not.
I can tell you that one of them is Adam Thornstowe and one of them is Lester the Legend. Which one's which, I don't think is important. I believe Lester the Legend is the one with the mohawk.
with the mohawk. Okay.
Yeah.
The other guy, he did some impressive things there. I was actually pretty impressed by their athleticism. They don't have necessarily a look that makes you go, oh my gosh, those guys are going to be crazy. But they were able to deliver. I thought the wrestling itself, what they were doing, the 2-on-1 with Rhino, actually looked great. I was pretty impressed with a lot of what they were doing. I actually want to see more of what these guys can do. Give them a proper feud, proper angles, and proper matches, and I think it'll look great. And my other positive, Rhino, you still got it, always.
Yeah, he can still. I
Could,
mean, now this is a 4.5 minute match, bell to bell, so it's not like Rhino had to work that long. Thank God, because I think he was pretty blown
oh,
up at the end. But you
okay.
you give Rhino 4 to 5 minutes. I think that's kind of his sweet spot.
And
And
he's
obviously,
good.
if he winds up tagging with Heath, he can go a little longer because he can take some breaks on the outside. But I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but Rhino's got to be getting up there in age. Um, so I mean, I'm pulling it up here. Yeah, he's 44. And so he's in his mid 40s. He's kind of a bigger guy. He's taken a lot of bad bumps in his time. So
Oh yeah.
hey, but like you said, good on Rhino for getting out there, gets the win by
I'll
by
support
hook
him always.
by hook or by crook.
Yeah.
Next we go backstage, and this is kind of a theme throughout the night with Moose, kind of just being overly paranoid about Mr. Ethan Carter III. He's just kind of asking everyone, "Hey, have you seen EC3? You seen EC3?" He's just kind of freaking out, right? Interrupts a promo I think that Brian Myers was giving backstage. He's just kind of popping in, right? Every backstage segment, Moose has to crash in. Hey, have you seen EC3? So it was kind of an interesting thing, and then we go right from that right to the Good Brothers drinking beers and telling stories about. From what I caught on, Luke Gallows beating someone up while being incredibly drunk and then falling asleep standing. I don't know if you followed that any better than I did.
No. Just kind of the Good Brothers sharing some bar stories in New Orleans, and that was pretty much it. Then, of course, my favorite guy, the Rascals, come by. They don't even care to
Yeah,
hear what's going on. They want to just prepare for their match. And I think it may have rubbed the Good Brothers the wrong way.
they might have. It might have. Now the Rascals have some work ahead of them because, as we remember from last week on Locker Room Talk, they did disrespect Ace Austin, or at least a perceived disrespect of Ace Austin and Madman Fulton, and leads to what I thought was a pretty good tag team match, but a way too short tag team match. This match logged in at 4 minutes and 47 seconds. But backing up, like you said, the Rascals did not want to take any advice from the Good Brothers about how to beat Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. They said, "Listen, we're just going to focus. We don't need to." And they're like, "Hey, man, drink a beer. We whoop those guys, no problem. You can do it too. Just drink a beer." The Good Brothers trying to get everyone to just be good brothers and good brothering around and talking
Good
shop
brothering
and
around.
I don't know. I think that's what I'm just gonna call it. But yeah,
There you go.
flash forward to the match. I thought it was really well structured. I thought that Desmond Wentz did a really good job chopping down Madman Fulton, especially towards the end, keeping him out the outside. But I don't know. I mean, what'd you think about this match here, Sandy?
This match was my favorite of the night. I thought it was fantastic. I am obsessed with the Rascals. The more and more I see of them in Impact, the more and more I want to put them in every main event. And of course, what we learned, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll get there. Like you mentioned, it was such a great, well-structured match. We have Madman Fulton, who up against Dez in the very beginning, was completely towering over Dez. And Dez, I'm not sure his height, his weight, but I mean, he's a very fit guy, not too tall, but man, the difference there. I remember one camera angle just looked at both of them directly, and Fulton was just hovering over Dez, and I'm like, oh, here we go, Dez or Fulton's just going to go and destroy him, which he kind of did, but Dez got in there. He had some pretty good offense trying to kind of keep Fulton off of him, and a lot of the back and forth with Dez and Wentz, ultimately trying to take down the big guy, trying to not necessarily isolate him. In the beginning, they were just kind of trying to survive, but essentially it got to the point where, okay, we can take on Ace Austin and we can isolate Fulton in the outside, and that's when Wentz just kind of went crazy with dives and Dez too, to keep him on the outside, keep him down. When they were finally able to do that, attack Ace Austin, and they got in for the win. What
Yeah,
did you
and
think?
I think it was I thought it was a pretty good match. I don't know if it was my favorite of the night. I think my favorite of the night we'll get into a little bit later. Um, but I thought, like you said, the way they kept chopping down Madman Fulton, it never like they figured it out, and the way they kind of figured, and then like I said, this match bell to bell is 4 minutes and 47 seconds according to Cage Match, and it felt like so
It
much
felt much
happened.
longer.
It,
Yeah.
so much happened in such a small amount of time, and I really feel like if you give those guys 10 to 12 minutes, they can have a really good TV match. And then if you want to run those guys, those four guys at Bound for Glory, give them 25, 20. I don't know, maybe
Hell
18,
yeah.
18 to 22 in that range. I think that those four guys could really put on a show. I've spoken of my affections of Ace Austin before on this podcast, and I think that he would really be a guy that can go with the other two. And then Madman, of course, can get his rest spots, being the bigger guy. But, I would really like to see this tag match run back again. But like I'm with you here, Sandy. The Rascals are they're up on my favorites for Impact right now as far as tag teams
And
go. But
like to me, even the way Dez just floats over the top rope when he just gets in the ring, he's not even doing anything
mm-mm.
offensively in wrestling. The way that he gets in the ring, I was like, oh, I love him.
Awesome. And you know what? We're gonna get to see them next week in action for the Impact Tag Team Championships
Yes,
against the Motor City Machine Guns. We
it's
learned
got
this
me
in eight.
hyped.
This is gonna be, if it's not, this should absolutely main event in this week's show, and it should absolutely get that main event ring time, that 12 to 15 minutes that they give towards the end. Um,
Agreed.
Unlike last week, I mean, obviously that was a 30-minute match. They're not going to be doing that too much, but obviously that was a stipulation. But I think if they give this tag team championship match 15 minutes, we could have a really good match between these two teams. But yeah, they came out, they challenged, they said, hey, listen, because they've actually wrestled these two teams at Slammiversary. It was a very good match. Um, they kind of set the angle, of course, that, hey, listen, you guys put an open challenge out. We answered. You didn't know that we were back in Impact. But we're to the champs now, and we're going to give you a shot at the title since, you gave us this open challenge to get us kind of back in here, get our, wheels going. But I think that's probably my match next week that I'm most looking forward to.
Hell yeah, me too. And I love the way that they said, hey, we want to congratulate you guys on your win. They said two things. We want to party with you guys,
Right.
and then we want to offer you this match. And the fact that they had to turn around, Dez and Wentz had to go and like kind of consult, should we agree, should we not agree? That was
Right.
really cute.
Like,
But
is there a trick?
I'm very
Like,
excited. Yeah, like the hell? But I'm
like,
very
listen,
excited. Can't
I
wait to
don't
see
think
them.
they're not a heel tag team. I think it's okay. I think we can go party with them. Like, um,
That's so true.
I do want to backtrack here, Sandy, because I did, and this is maybe a Freudian slip. I did skip over the second segment of Wrestle House,
How
which
dare
this
you,
is this is a Wrestle House fan podcast. We enjoy Wrestle House,
right?
but this second segment, and I skipped it because it is a long,
Long, very long.
long, very long segment.
You guys can see the face that Josh is making right now. He literally, when he means long, he means long.
Right,
Poor Josh.
exactly. I was really, really drawing that word out because, of course, we still haven't, at this point, still haven't figured out who took the Diener's beer.
Who took the beer?
Right, we're still trying to figure that out. I, of course, on this podcast predicted Tommy Dreamer. We find out later that I was wrong, which I'm very upset about, and Tommy should have written me back about it. But the Dieners and Team Triple XL, AC Romero and Larry D, they called off their truce, and they decided to
Bad
start
move.
this incredibly long brawl that goes all over Wrestle House, goes down to the garage. There's the elevators. There's a random ping pong match in the middle of it. And of course, at one, at one, it's so silly. It's so goofy. It has
I love it.
very little to do with professional wrestling, and I loved it. It drags on way too long, but it was really, really fun. Of course, Tommy Dreamer decides, because he's there in the room when they start fighting. Oh, I guess I'm roughing this match. I mean, he didn't call match time. We'll let it slide. But,
He kind of
did he say
did
match
you
time?
miss it?
I might
I
have.
swear to God. So that they were still in the kitchen, and that's when the brawl just started breaking out. And then you see Dreamer, he just very nonchalantly goes,
Yes. That's
"Match
right.
time."
That's right. He took a sip of like a Mountain Dew or something.
Yeah.
I actually rewound. It's funny you say that now. You're jogging my memory. This is what happens when we record after I play hockey and it's like midnight. Um,
Oh.
but you did jog my memory because I remember I rewound because I thought in my mind I saw him take a sip of a beer and I thought, oh, he was right, but it was like a Mountain Dew or Sierra Mist, something like that. But yeah, that's to say, they had this one spot where I think it was cousin Jake sets up Larry D on the stage, and then he goes all the way down the hallway to start to do his like running knee strike, and he starts sprinting down, and AC walks over to Larry D. He's like, "Hey man, you
You got time.
you got plenty of time here. You can move." He's like, I can't, man. I'm all blown up. I can't. And they just keep on, panning back to, cousin Jake write it down. And then he's like, I mean, do you want me to like help you get out of the way? Or he's like, oh, that'd be great. So he just kind of helps Larry get out of the
I
way. And
popped.
that was the funniest part of the thing. I really enjoy that. If you got, I think this thing went like, it felt like 10 minutes, if not more. Like it was a long segment.
It felt longer.
But it did feel longer at times because there was so many things. But it was fun. But of course, they brawl into the bedroom of Team Triple XL, and they find a singular beer bottle, underneath Larry D's bed. And of course, he claims that he didn't do it, but that does not convince Cody Deaner. So they keep fighting. Susie walks in. Now, Susie is very upset that they broke their truce. And next, next thing you know, the door shuts. We see the camera outside. Tommy Dreamer's there waiting. Susie comes out, and only Susie. And he says, "Hey, I'm supposed to be roughing this match. Do you see where they went?" And she kind of like glances at the door. He goes in, opens the door, makes a face, shuts the door, and goes, "Okay, I guess Susie won." And then he lifts her hand. He lifts her hands up, and her hand is smothered,
Bloody.
smothered in
What
blood.
happened?
We never know. We
Never
do
know.
see all four guys back ringside for the match later on in Wrestle House, the main event of Wrestle House, the final match of Wrestle House, as we come to find out. Not to bury the lead.
Happy.
But it was a fun segment. Susie wins the brawl as Tommy Dreamer declares her the winner.
Never break a truce around her. She'll murder you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Susie is pretty intense. Pretty intense stuff
Very.
here. And now we go backstage with the Virtuosa, Deonna Purrazzo, after the tag match, moving back forward to where we were, because, of course, I skipped over Wrestle House. I'm sorry. Deonna Purrazzo backstage with Kimberly, and she says, "Hey, listen, I need you to have my back because I think Jordan Grace is going to try to she's going to jump my black tie affair here." I thought it was an interesting thing. I don't know why Kimberly would side with Deonna Purrazzo, but that part was kind of lost on me. Felt kind of forced. I don't know. What's your thoughts here?
Exactly what you just said. It did feel kind of forced, and unfortunately, yeah. Sorry, we had an impromptu.
Yeah, we had a run in. We had a run in from Colleen. She must know that the Colleen's hashtag Chef's Kiss of the Night is coming up. So she just had a run in and distracted Sandy from her thoughts on Deonna Purrazzo siding with Kimberly. So I apologize to the listeners there, but sometimes these things happen. We record these things live. We go straight through, Sandy. There's no edits here.
I tried so hard to keep going, but she was being so cute. I just had to. Colleen is the best, and I can't wait to eat her cookies. She has to make me some cookies.
Yeah, well, she's baking some probably tomorrow, but those are for the road trip up to All Out.
So jealous.
Yeah, but getting back on task here. You were talking about what you thought about Deonna and Kimberly teaming up here.
Deonna, it felt forced. Yeah, just the presentation, not the presentation, I guess, and the delivery. Kimberly, it felt very forced, and yeah,
She's
why
not
would
a
she
good.
accept?
She's not a good promo. I mean,
No,
she's just not.
she
And
killed it at the delivering when they actually were in the ring and she was introducing Deanna. That part was fine.
much better when it was
Yeah.
the actual black tie affair. But this backstage segment was kind of forced. Thankfully, though, it was short. We move right along to another backstage tape with, of course, our X Division champion Rohit Raju,
Sure.
and he gets interrupted by our friend here and social media personality that you should not follow, TJP.
Burn, poor dude.
I wouldn't say poor dude. He's let's just say he was pushing some nonsense around Twitter. I'm not going to promote him. I'm not going to say go read it, but he just, you know, watch him on Impact, watch him on New Japan Strong, enjoy what you see in the ring, and then just call it a day.
And then that's it.
And then that's it. But what'd you think about this segment here?
I loved it. So remember last week we talked about how Raju was saying that he's going to be giving out everyone an opportunity that wants a shot at his X Division championship because he never received any opportunities. And I was like, wait, that's kind of weird. You're a heel. Why are you over here offering opportunities? Now we see what happens. TJP wanted a title shot. He wanted an opportunity. And he's like, okay, wait a minute. Sure, I'll give you an opportunity, but first you must face Chris Bay. So
Right.
I'm glad he kind of still held true to what he was saying last week about giving opportunities, but he's still a heel. He's still a bad guy. Why would he want to be given out opportunities?
Right.
So he has his conditions. He wants people to work for it. He wants other people to fight, and he'll eventually, I can see him maybe try to wiggle himself out of the situation and not actually give TJP a title shot. I think that'd be a cool storyline where he just doesn't defend it at all.
Right.
And somehow still make it seem like he is giving out opportunities. Who knows? We'll see how this goes. But I love my man Raju, and of course next week it is confirmed we'll see TJP against Chris Bay. That'll be next week.
Absolutely, and it's Chris Bay's rematch clause on the line, so that's why Chris Bay is still able to. He's still next in line for that challenge because he was the champion, lost it to, of course, Rahi Raju, and then we'll see what happens there. That's going to be another good match, another one to good look forward to. Hopefully, they give it more than 4.5 minutes. I think they will because there's a certain segment of the show that we're learning is not going to be a part of it going forward. And that leads us to our final segment, possibly ever, Sandy, of Wrestle House.
Dude, I was really upset when they said that. When we found out everything was unfolding, I was like, no, it's going to happen to Wrestle House. But it might be over. Who knows?
It looks like it's over. Of course, we have the match between Taya and Rosemary, or Rosemary, I should say. Wow, that was horrible. Rosemary, not Rosemary. Look at me being proper. Goodness gracious.
You.
Listen, I'm talking about a demon-possessed wrestler. I don't need to be proper of this.
Satan's daughter.
Rosemary. Got it. So, like I said, folks, we type this straight on through. This is like live TV. If you screw up, you keep going, right?
Yep.
So, this match comes in under 4 minutes. It's a little bit more serious than some of the other, of course, Wrestle House matches that we've seen. It was more reminiscent of when we saw Kylie Ray and Taya wrestle in Wrestle House. So it is a little bit more serious. There is a few more moves. But ultimately, of course, Rosemary eats the road to Valhalla, which is, of course, Taya's menacing, very, very painful looking finisher. Like we touched on earlier, Johnny Bravo is the special guest referee, and he calls it right down the middle, which I thought was interesting.
You missed the most important part. Johnny Bravo proposes to Rosemary.
Well, I didn't miss that part. I was just waiting for you to kind of, because I figured, it was kind of, it's kind of the mushy, love story part of what's going on. So I figured.
Because of a girl, Josh?
No, because you don't have a heart of stone.
All right.
No,
I'll take that.
So, yeah, no, I mean, Johnny Bravo says, listen, I still have to be Taya's manager, but that doesn't mean my work gets in the way of my personal life. Like work-life balance, Johnny Bravo, who would have thought? But go ahead.
They were able to kind of answer a lot of the questions that I had because I had no idea. I guess I still really don't why Wrestle House is a thing in the first place. Do you recall the storyline to kind of what happened to put them all on display.
And I think piecing it together, it feels like it was because of this love triangle thing, and Rosemary kind of made everyone go to Russell House. That's there. Just kind of took half the roster and said, "Okay, we're in Russell House," and then nobody could leave. That's kind of what the cliffhanger of Deonna Purrazzo beating Jordan Grace was. Okay, well, Kylie Rae's the next challenger. There's no rematch clause, but Kylie Rae's stuck in Russell House. What's going to happen? And of course, we get that answer. There's some talking at the end there where they decide everyone can go back, and Taya says, "Okay, yeah, let's go," and then they teleport out of Russell House.
That
And
made me laugh so freaking hard. Like, to some people, they're like, all right, what is this? What is this garbage? I laughed so hard. They all just got in the ring. It was such a cute moment. They're like, hey, we can finally go back to the impact zone. And then they just, all right, dude, teleport and disappear. And then we go into Deanna's black tie affair, which was something. You had some people there. She was doing her typical heel thing where she wants a show and a party about her historic win against Jordan Grace at Emergence, and she looked fantastic. That dress was gorgeous. And then of course we have a lot of the talent around the ring, not necessarily doing their black tie, so she's kind of pissed off about that.
Right. There was a segment earlier where she was like, kind of like, is that what you're wearing, to like a bunch of different wrestlers? And yeah, it was, some people were not dressed to the nines.
No, like Deonna, nobody cares. Only you care. Get out of here. And of course she wants a celebration all about her. But that's the funny part, because who else thinks it's all about them? Dun, dun, dun.
Well, don't skip. We have one run in before that. We hear the sirens. We have the sirens, and then Jordan Grace, Big Mama Pump herself, comes out, and she is in very casual clothes. She's wearing jeans and a top, and she is not adhering to the dress code policy of the black tie affair at all. And of course, she starts calling her out, and mid promo, as you alluded to, someone else thinks it's all about them.
Dun.
And it's none other than Miss Tenille Dashwood, who has been absent of Impact for a while, but she's coming back, and she makes it known that she wants the Knockouts Championship belt.
Of course she does. For those of you who may not know, Tenille Dashwood is talent formerly known as Emma in WWE.
Right. And she was the first Australian woman, I believe, employed by WWE as a wrestler. If not first Australian period as a wrestler. So she was kind of groundbreaking in two ways there.
And so very exciting to see her back. I actually completely forgot she was already in Impact just a few months ago, because I thought this whole time she was in Ring of Honor, but I guess she's kind of just made her appearance here and there. Good for her. Got lots of work. But I think
I feel like Impact. Yeah, no, I feel like Impact has a pretty open relationship with ROH these days. EC3 was rumored to be in the recent ROH tapings. So we'll see kind of how that kind of plays out back and forth. But but continue what you're saying.
I really enjoy that, especially now we have Thunder Rosa and Cheetah for the women's title at All Out. And I think I was reading about that title this afternoon. And it was one of those things where both owners of the companies were so excited to have this, your champion should be out there defending against other champions. That's how you can prove who is the best. Now, of course, when it comes to booking pro wrestling, you don't want your champion to lose, this and that, the politics and the storylines and everything involved with it. But I think it's really cool when you have cross-promotional talent go against each other, and you have these matches that you may not be able to see anywhere else. And I really wish that's something that was more commonplace in pro wrestling, especially with the big leagues. But yeah, this is exciting.
Yeah, and of course, mid Tenille Dashwood promo, she gets interrupted by the entire cast of Wrestle House teleporting straight into the ring. And this
made me laugh so hard.
This was edited so badly. It was so corny, but I as soon as it happened, it was kind of like a wah, 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 and then and that was the sound effect I heard in my head, and it was so funny. And of course, who of course gets teleported right to the middle next to Deonna Purrazzo, but the number one contender, Kylie Rae.
Our girl, yay!
And man, she ducks Deonna Purrazzo, who goes flying over the ropes, And then Kimberly starts to harass Susie, which Kylie, of course, takes offense to. And I don't know where Kimberly's head landed because it was knocked clean off her shoulders by a super kick by Kylie Ray.
It was insane. In her flats and her little shorts. It was so,
Yeah,
it was perfect.
it was really good. Great way to cap off what is the end of Russell House. We did find out, by the way, who, of course, was drinking the beer. None other, I mean, it's crazy, Steve. I should have known. I mean, what am I thinking here? You know
That's
what it
crazy.
is? You know what it is? I let my affections and my personal friendship with Tommy Dreamer get in the way.
Oh,
I
come
wanted
on.
him to be more part of the storyline, Sandy.
Be a professional.
But you know what? I'm going to be a professional now, and I'm going to let you take us through this main event here, Sandy.
Dun dun dun. So for the main event, we have EY, Mr. Eric Young, finally getting his hands on, or should we say vice versa, Eddie Edwards finally getting his hands on Eric Young. This is for the Impact World Championship. It is a great hot match. Eddie is heated. He immediately goes to the offense. He is very pissed off, and it's a very quick, violent start, which I enjoyed. I was like, oh, okay, here we go. This is the match to see. And I'm pretty sure this is your favorite match, correct?
Yeah, this was my favorite match of the night. I thought both guys, like you said, the intensity was off the charts, which makes up for some of the moves that don't hit as clean. It doesn't matter because the intensity is so much. It's not going to be a 5-star wrestling match where everything hits perfect, but the intensity was off the charts.
And that to me, that is so important in wrestling. That's like one of my nitpicky things when it comes to wrestling. If there's no intensity behind it, I can't get into it. I can't buy into it. I can't invest my feelings into it. If I see, that's why maybe a lot of the people from Social Suplex Network were so into New Japan, because man, when they go over there, they go, and it's hard hitting. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to hit hard every time or try to hurt your opponent. No, it's just if you go in there with that intensity, like, okay, this is a fight between two people. We have to hurt each other, but I'm going to make sure I hurt you more so that I can get this win, because that is the ultimate and the only reason why you're in there. And if you're not showing that emotion and that intensity and that feeling that you're trying to win by hurting the other person, then what even is the point? So to me, this kind of delivered on that on every level.
Yeah, and on that note, like you mentioned with New Japan, I'll just throw this out there. The best COVID era match in New Japan that I watched, in my opinion, the one I enjoyed the most was Yuji Nagata versus Minoru Suzuki from the New Japan Cup, and it was like what would you say, like 90% forearms and chops? I mean, it was just
beat the hell out of each other.
so
and just forearms and chops.
right. And of course, eventually, I think it winds up ending with Suzuki trying to go for the Gotch style pile driver and then gets countered into kind of like the side by side backdrop. But when you have that intensity, when you are putting yourself out there, you're selling what you're doing, and you're hitting each other. I mean, Eddie Edwards and Eric Young were not pulling stuff up; they really hit each other, and I thought it was a pretty good match. It's sitting about 3 stars on Cage Match, which I'd say if you were doing the technical thing, maybe I'm like I've mentioned on this podcast, I don't understand star ratings. I don't know how you get to them. I don't know what drives those. But for me, like I watch a wrestling match, I say, okay, I enjoyed that match. I thought that was pretty good, right? And so for me, that's what I got to say about this one. I thought it was a pretty good match.
Pretty good match. You have EY working the neck of Eddie Edwards. He did this crazy neck breaker on the apron with
I cringed.
Neck, yes, but no, it was done perfectly well. But I was like, oh, just regular neck breaker spots to me. I don't know what it is. I have a thing about freaking necks, and whenever those are targeted, I'm like, oh, cringe. But he did this on the apron. I was like, oh, in my mind, like I was just like, he's trying to kill this man. Of course, EY working the neck. Later on, we see when Eddie Edwards finally kind of has a comeback. He's getting ready. He's getting hot again. He takes a couple of dives over the top rope, and I think one through the middle rope where he is targeting Eric Young. And unfortunately, the story here is that he buckled his knee on the way out, which prevented him from doing his Boston knee party, the best freaking finisher name ever. Boston knee party. He wasn't able to execute that. Every move that he tried up until the finish of the match, he really wasn't able to do at 100% just because his knee was just hurting. It was completely out.
Right.
What did you think of the finish, Josh?
I'm glad you asked, because I always have mixed feelings about this, because when you have a really good match, I want the finish to be clean. I like it when a heel finishes clean. I like it when a babyface finishes clean. I like to walk away from a wrestling match feeling like somebody won and not that somebody cheated. And I think that's probably why growing up, I was never a big Ric Flair fan, because he kind of coined that hooker by crook, right? And we see Eric Young get the hockey mask out. He cranks Eddie Edwards with it, and then it does lead to a picture perfect. And I'm gonna put my Collins hashtag Chef's Kiss move of the night on Eric Young's pile driver. And so that's what won the match, of course, was the pile driver. But how we get there, of course, is the hockey mask. I don't like it. I don't like the hockey mask. I didn't think the match needed it. It sets up a kind of shoe-in later on match where, hey, you didn't beat me fair and square, you cheated, and I want you back, because they use that, and then afterwards, of course, we get another beatdown where Eric Young targets the knee of Eddie Edwards and just completely obliterates it.
He does a mean chop block, and I think he then does a knee bar, if I'm not mistaken, after the chop block to that already injured knee. To me, though, so I don't really mind the whole. It has to be done right, and the whole DQ thing, heel going like a heel, they cheat. We know this. It happens. To me, it didn't feel desperate enough. He didn't have to go for it. He wasn't getting completely destroyed. It was one of those things where it wasn't necessary then. Like, maybe the match had gone a little bit longer, or maybe if we had gotten into a point where Eddie Edwards was completely taking over the match and there was nothing else that Eric Young could do but cheat to win, like he said he was going to. But it didn't feel like he should have been desperate enough to do that. He initially went for the title and then went for the hockey mask. You train in hockey. Can one of those things hitting you in the head, can that actually knock you out?
Okay, so yeah, that's like, the old school Jason mask they haven't used since like the 80s, right? Because they are very thin compared to what goalies wear now. And even to what, coming up, when you're playing like junior hockey and different things like that, everyone wears a full face cage now, which is more protective than what the Jason style hockey mask is, quite frankly. And we know, it doesn't make it. Could it hurt you? Sure, but knock you out, and no, I don't. And that's part of the other reason I don't buy it. One is I felt like Eric Young had the upper hand already.
Yeah.
And then number two, the hockey mask is not as solid as the 20 pounds of gold or whatever the title belt is, right? So but I understand why they did it, and I understand the post match stuff, and even Josh was on commentary saying, oh man, he might have ended his career. He's going to be out for months. So I was wondering last week, if you recall, if they did switch the belt, which they did tonight, or not tonight, but this week, how they were going to get to a good opponent for Eric Young for Bound for Glory. And I think they kind of, well, it could be Rich Swann. That's what I want. But of course, Rich Swann is still retired. But I think they'd set it up for Eddie Edwards to have basically a month off, 6 weeks off to lead up to Bound for Glory, because they're selling this knee injury thing. So we'll see what happens.
We shall see. And finally, the closing segment for Impact this week. Remember, guys, we kept mentioning how Moose is kind of going around like a crazy person trying to find EC3. He finally gets into this room, and it's like one of those old detective movies where they're trying to find this crazy serial killer who has picked his target. Mm-hmm. He goes into this room, and it's all pictures of him from back when he was playing football to the one he grabs a picture and he's like, this one's just from today. That made me laugh so hard. And just a bunch of photos of him at the gym, just living his life. So pretty creepy. EC3 has a map in the middle of this board, and kind of is pointing to an exact location. So earlier EC3 said you have this amount of time and you have to find me at this undisclosed location. If you can find me, you may have a chance at getting your title back. If you can't, within this time, I will send you your title piece by piece. So he is threatening to destroy this title. But it looks like Moose knows the location, and we see him take off and getting ready to face EC3.
Yeah, so it was interesting because the credits started to roll and then they cut to that. I was getting ready to close out of the video player and I was like, oh wait, there's more. So because they had started like to play the outro music. Being that this, we know from knowing that the Impact Zone that they've been doing all their taping in is in Nashville, and Nashville was not circled on the map. It looked like it was like a New York, Philadelphia area, that tri-state kind of area there. And it feels like, Sandy, we've seen a lot of cinematic matches this year. You think this one's going to be a pre-taped cinematic match? That was my thought watching this.
I didn't even think about that at all. But yeah, absolutely. Because I don't think Impact has done anything to that point yet during this whole Corona situation, have they?
No, I don't think they've done a cinematic match since of course, Broken Matt Hardy was doing stuff back in TNA, which of course revolutionized
the originator.
Correct, of the cinematic masterpiece match. But I don't know. They haven't done it. We found out today that All Out has a cinematic match, which is Big Swole and Dr. Britt Baker. There's kind of some talk about because Britt's not 100% yet with her knees, but they've been teasing this All Out thing, like since she got hurt. Like when she first got her diagnosis, she's like, I'm wrestling at All Out, and so I guess the cinematic match is the way you get around that. I don't know. It's cinematic match. Which we'll do a brief sidebar because that wraps up kind of the night of Impact, and we said kind of at the top it was kind of a different kind of show. It was very backstage heavy. It wrapped up Wrestle House. It wrapped up, and so hopefully we'll see more Knockouts division stuff, more tag division stuff going forward. That was losing that TV time because of Wrestle House. But cinematic matches, I'll let you start. But what are your kind of overall thoughts about what we've seen in the world of cinematic wrestling in 2020 during this COVID time?
You know what? I've been a fan of it. The Jericho and Randy one. Not Jericho and Randy. Randy and Edge. Jericho and Randy. Okay.
It's long blonde hair.
Randy and Edge. That one to me, it felt a little much. It felt a little long, and I don't know what it was about it. I think they were, I think to me it was the whole fact that they were, what was it, the best match of all time, and it's like, all right, relax. One, two, it's no, because it's a cinematic match, so we know what it is. It can't be the best one of all time.
Right.
They were trying. To me, they tried too hard. They delivered it perfectly. It was excellent, but it was just too much.
Yeah, they actually had two cinematic matches that were both extremely long because they had the no DQ one that was just too long.
But I really enjoyed AJ Styles and The Undertaker.
Sure.
I thought that, to me, the reason why is because it also didn't take itself too seriously. We have the Undertaker doing his spooky underworld shit, which freaking big pop.
Right.
The ending to that with the lights and the fire and everything happening, I love that.
A lot of good gifts came out of that match. A lot of good gifts.
So if it's gonna be a cinematic match where we know what it is, we know it's not. To me, it can't be taken seriously. So when you try to do it so it's so serious, it kind of loses that. It's supposed to be fun.
Right.
And that's what with AJ. And of course, the Stampede match, that was my freaking favorite.
Stadium Stampede was awesome. That was my favorite cinematic match. There's so many, and like you said, they did not take so much of that seriously. I always confuse my Jacksons, but I believe it was Nick Jackson that does the Northern Lights suplex, and he does the bridging Northern Lights suplex the entire length of the football field. Was it Matt? Okay, sorry. I screw up my Jacksons. They look the same in my mind, and everyone listen. Everyone in the group chat makes fun of me, but I can't keep those two guys straight to save my life. James can't keep FTR guys straight. He just calls one of them bald,
I
and so that I'm the same way. Like I'm like, okay, I know Matt sells the back, so that's kind of like how I tell them apart. Is eventually at some point in the match, Matt Jackson his back will hurt, and that's how I know which one is which. But
that's amazing.
yeah, I know it's one of those weird things. But yeah, no, they did the Northern Light suplex, the length of the field, and they did the dunking Matt Hardy, and he kept changing to different Matt
Oh,
Hardys.
wow.
They had the part with the drinking at the bar, and you know all of those things
So
were
good.
so awesome, right? The Stadium Stampede, and of course finishing with a one winged angel like 30 feet down. You know, if you have not seen the Stadium Stampede match, go watch it.
Go
Um,
watch it right now.
Go watch it. Stop what you're doing, push us on pause. We won't mind. Go
Yeah.
watch that match, and then come back to us, and then tweet us and tell us we were right. Um,
And see such. Yes, correct.
yeah, I mean, on the flip side of that, there's the stuff that tried to be too artsy. I'm looking
Hmm.
at you, Bray Wyatt, Mr.
Oh,
Rotunda. I did not like that match at all. You can't even call it a match
oh, wait, with John Cena?
with John Cena. I didn't. There were some chuckle parts. I thought,
No.
John Cena's always going to be John Cena. He's going to, do the joke spots, the this and that. I and I don't really like it. But for me, like cinematic matches,
Dude,
and I didn't like the
that
Swamp
one
match either with
deserves.
Braun Strowman. That one was terrible. But
Oh,
um, that was, I mean, those two guys need to never ever see each other ever again. They should get a restraining order filed against each other and never wrestle each other, never do anything together because it's awful every time. But to your point, when it's lighthearted, when it's oh, that's such a corny spot, right? To me, that's where a cinematic match can really shine. That's why the broken Matt Hardy stuff worked, because there's the Hardy compound, and there's Skarsgård, the dilapidated boat, and Senor Benjamin, and just wacky shit, right? So, for me, I can't. I hope that if they do one with Moose and EC3, that it's like the Randy and Edge stuff, where it was around a ring at least.
hmm.
Um, but not like the Champa Gargano one, which I never finished because the production actually made me nauseous.
Oh, I forgot about that.
There were so many cuts and so much like just different shit with the lighting. I watched like maybe 5 minutes of that match and turned it off. I couldn't get through it.
Yeah, completely overproduced.
Yeah, you know. So I
So
mean
we'll see.
that's our little sidebar there on cinematic matches. We don't know that Moose and EC3 is going to be that. That was just an idea that I had, just because it was a different location, and I don't think Impact is running any live shows anytime soon.
I don't think
Live wrestling is starting to come back.
so.
AEW it had fans at Dynamite last week and this week, and there are fans that are going to be at All Out. Like I mentioned earlier, a few of us are going to be in attendance there from our little group called the Largo Loop. Um, we are, it's. I feel comfortable doing it. You are only allowed to sit with who you came with. They're going to be strict mask enforcement, hand sanitizer everywhere, no tailgating, no cash being passed around. So they're doing it as safe as possible. It's outdoors. Daly's Place, if you're not familiar with it, is an outdoor amphitheater that's attached to the Jaguar Stadium in Jacksonville, Florida. So we'll see as long as things continue to be good, and that doesn't become a hot spot for spreading it. I think that more companies will do it, and hopefully, Sandy, we'll get to see you wrestle in person soon.
Woo! Hopefully, I miss wrestling so much. I'll definitely keep you guys posted so anyone that's local can come to our next Tampa Bay Pro Wrestling show. We don't know when that will be, but hopefully very soon. Very happy to have wrestling back so we can go enjoy and live the rest of our lives. And yes, Corona is still out there, it's still a threat. We have to be very careful, but I'm kind of glad to have it back.
Absolutely, and and on the coronavirus stuff, just be safe. It doesn't matter if you think that it's something or if you think that it's not something. Just look out for each other. Be safe. Wash your hands. Don't touch your eyes. Which is helpful advice even when there's not coronavirus. Always wash
Exactly.
your hands. Always wash your hands.
Always. Ah.
Always use hand sanitizer. But anyways, with that, I think that's wrestling for the week, Sandy.
Yes, it is. Can't wait to see what's going on next week. Next week should be a banger. We have some great matches. I cannot wait. This one a little bit slower, but we're able to make it through. Excited for the future. We'll see what's
Yep.
to come.
Good transition episode. And now I'm going to transition into a commercial break. When we come back, we'll be talking about a video game series that's near and dear to my heart. It shaped a large part of my childhood. It's why I wore Massimo clothing and Quicksilver for a very long time. It's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and we'll talk about it right after the break.
This is Jordan Grace, and you're listening to the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
All right, so Sandy, we're back now from commercial, and we had a good time talking about wrestling, but now I want to talk to you about Manscaped a little bit. Manscaped is, of course, redesigning the men's trimming below the belt situation here. They are revolutionizing the industry, so to speak, just like Tony Hawk did when he, of course, came out with his game series that we're going to talk about here shortly. There was a time as a kid when I was, going down the street, pushing my board down, try to ollie, try to kick flip. And I don't know about you, Sandy, but sometimes, I tried to kick flip and the board would kick up, and we call that racking ourselves, right? So,
Ooh,
yeah,
that
it
sounds
was
good.
not great. I did recover. I have two children. And I don't know that Manscaped's Lawnmower 3.0 would have helped with that. But I like to think that it would have made me more aerodynamic so that I would have missed the board. And, maybe with something like that, right? Because Manscaped does use an advanced skin safe technology that they've developed to make sure that millions of balls worldwide are going to be nick free. And of course, not necessarily from grip tape, but from your razor. You shouldn't be getting nicks, cuts, burns from your razor when you're trimming down there. And so they have a 7,000 RPM motor with what they call quiet stroke technology to make sure that you're not getting any hangups, you're not getting any pulled hairs, you're not getting anything going on there. So definitely make sure that you check out Manscaped's products and get your Lawnmower 3.0 today. Head on over to manscaped.com, use the promo code SUPLEX. And like we mentioned at the top, you get 20% off, you get free shipping. And for literally, this is going to launch on Friday, or release, I should say. And then we have Saturday. You got 2 days left. We have 3 more giveaways to give away of the All Out pay-per-view. So use the promo code SUPLEX, order your Lawnmower 3.0, or perhaps Crop Preserver if you're in the South, and you need to make sure you're not getting swamp butt. And use the promo code SUPLEX. Send us your proof of purchase to socialsuplex@gmail.com. And you know what? Your balls will thank you because they'll be cool, not nicked, and they'll be sitting on your couch watching All Out courtesy of the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
It's the final countdown.
There you go.
You got 2 days.
Yeah, listen, I was going to cut you off there. I think we only get like 5 seconds of singing that song before we're in legal trouble. So
Oh no.
yeah, I'll check the tape
Please
later.
don't
No,
do us.
I'm just kidding. I don't know that. What is that? Is it Europe that sang the final countdown? I don't know. I'm only 30 years old. That song was before me. It predates you also, so I don't know that we're the
Yes.
ones to talk about that. But what we can talk about, Sandy, like I mentioned, is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Before we get into Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, I have to say I played skateboarding kits growing up. I had one on the Nintendo Entertainment System, the affectionately named Skate or Die. It was an absolutely unplayable trash game. I could not figure it out, and it may be more on me being a young child, Sandy, but but maybe
Listen,
not.
a lot of those old games on the NES were like, good luck, here you go. Like, figure
Yeah,
it out yourself. And it's like, what?
no instructions. No, and of course, like by the time I'm playing Nintendo Entertainment System games, like Skate or Die came out in '87. I was born not in '87. I wasn't even born yet when that game came out. And by the time I get it, there's no instruction manuals. I don't know about you, but I never had instruction manuals for NES games ever. And if I did, it was because I bought it like 2 years ago at the local retro game store that had a game in box. So I had no idea how to play this game. I'm, sitting there, like, they have like a downhill thing where you're like weaving through cones, jumping over like grass spots, and it's just there's a half pipe. I figured out how to do a trick on the half pipe. Like it's kind of a collection of mini games. Um, yeah, it's not good. So,
Yeah.
when you're talking about like skateboarding games, I think it's important to understand where we came from. Because games like that, you had 720. You of course had Skate or Die 2, because what's better than one Skate or Die game? A second Skate or Die game. They mixed in skateboarding into a bunch of different things. There was a compilation game called California Games that had a very similar skateboarding motion to Skate or Die. Um, they had, and this was right before Tony Hawk's Pro Skater came out, which is a game called Extreme, which was downhill racing. It was on the PlayStation. There was bikes, skateboards, and I believe rollerblades, and those three things would compete against each other in a downhill race. And now, in my mind, there's zero chance that someone on a bicycle is ever going to be slower than a guy on a skateboard or a guy
Yeah,
rollerblading.
what?
But they made three of those games, Sandy. And of course, there was Extreme, 2 Extreme, and of course, three Extreme. They got really
Oh,
creative with
okay.
these titles. 3 Extreme was the last one released because, we have in 1999, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater comes out, and
The big
and
year.
this was right after the X Games started to get some steam. 1995 was when they did the first X Games. Uh, I remember as a kid growing up here in St. Pete, they actually held X Games tryouts in downtown St. Pete that my dad took me and my
Wow.
brother to, and I was like, oh shit, like we're gonna see Tony Hawk. We're gonna see Dave Mirra do some BMX stuff. We're gonna see, there's the two brothers from Japan that were doing aggressive inline back then, and my brother's like, no, idiot, they're already qualified. These are just the scrubs that they have to fill the competition with.
Oh.
I was like, of course. I'm like, I was probably 7 or 8. I'm like, what? What do you What do you
Broke your
mean?
heart.
You mean Tony Hawk's not here? Andy McDonald's not here? Like, what? I don't understand. And so, um, it was kind of I watched all these X Games. X Games became such a part of society, Sandy. I don't know how much you remember about those years. Every kid had a skateboard at that time. Every kid had a bike. You had friends that had rollerblades. Um, they even made, I don't know if you remember the Disney animated movie, the Goofy movie, but
Of course.
the sequel has the college X Games in it, which is not a real thing. They literally just, oh, how do we get people to watch this, direct to home video movie? Send Max to college and make him compete in the X Games. you know,
Oh.
X Games
I don't
was
think I saw the
everywhere.
sequel.
Everywhere. It is on Disney Plus, not to give them a plug because they don't pay us to. But it was such an awesome time to be a kid. And I I was so excited to play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I didn't have a PlayStation. My best friend at the time, growing up across the street, Matt, did. And his dad was like, he was kind of always away doing like army stuff. And so when he would come back, when he was around, he'd basically be like, hey, it's Friday, let's go get a game. And so one Friday, my buddy came home. He called me. He lived across the street, but we still use the phone for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, we would literally could have just been out front and just been like, "Hey, come over." But this is right on the heels too, by the way, of Tony Hawk doing the 900 for the first time at the X Games in
History
1999.
was freaking made. I remember that because who wouldn't remember that? That was
Right.
huge. The
Now,
reaction from that. I think there was a commercial. I think was it for the new game coming out tomorrow that they kind of showed that, or was it for something else? I can't even recall
yeah,
the
I think
commercial.
so. I mean, it's obviously such a pop culture like lexicon thing, right? It's one of those things like, where were you when this happened thing?
Exactly.
And for skateboarding, that was never a thing. Like skateboarding has always been like counterculture. It's always been, oh, look at those kids on their skateboards, damn hooligans, right? And that's how it's always been from the 80s. The 70s is really when it kind of got started, and when it really picked up in the 80s. It's always been this counterculture, not really a thing. And of course, ESPN with the X Games really capitalized on it and pushed it into the mainstream. And I remember sitting in the living room with my brother and just watching Tony Hawk try it over and over and over again, right? And of course, he doesn't win the competition because he doesn't land it during competition. I think Bucky Lasek maybe wound up winning, or Andy McDonald or something. Maybe Bob Burnquist, one of the legends, right, that were all competing at the same time. But that crowd, I think this was in San Diego, that crowd didn't go anywhere. They wanted to see Tony Hawk hit the 900. And of course,
Oh, no, the
ESPN,
reaction.
thank God ESPN didn't cut away. They just kept it rolling. I remember, I don't know if you remember, Sal Masekela was hosting the X Games back then. He's up on the deck. He's like, oh, okay, Tony's going to do it again. Tony's going to try again. And I just remember, like, me and my brother just sitting there, like, okay, edge of our seat. Come on, Tony. Come on, Tony. And then he hits it. And then it was so sketch. And we were like, oh, yeah. It happened in slow motion when you watched it live, right? I mean, it was such a monumental thing. And me and my brother, like, over in, Largo, Florida, jumping up and down in our living room because Tony Hawk hit the 900, right?
Oh.
Like, that was like, it's starting to get a little goosebumpy here, but I just wanted to set the stage for why Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was such a huge thing. And it was such a great, like, continuation to ride that wave of momentum.
And that
That,
was only a month before the game was actually released, the very first
right.
one.
Yeah. So it was kind of being in development. And I believe Tony Hawk's name was attached to it later on in development. In large
Yeah.
part because of X Games and different things like that. They were going to be making Pro Skater, but it just wasn't Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. And of course, the game was made by Activision. It released first on the PlayStation, then a year later on the Nintendo 64, because there were some formatting issues with, of course, PlayStation being the disc based. They could fit more stuff on it. They had to figure out a way to kind of cram it into the N64 cartridge. And, the expansion pack on the N64 kind of helped with that too. But being able to go to my friend's house and be like, okay, dude, let's play Tony Hawk. Come on, let's do it. And we would sit there for absolute hours playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. And what was cool too was it wasn't just all these names that we saw in the X Games. The characters that you had guys like Chad Muska and Kareem Campbell that didn't do the big contests. They were like, no, man, we're not selling out. We're not doing that. We're not doing X Games, because being a sellout was still, that was like, oh, you can't do that, right? And we saw that, of course, that was right about the same time that Real Big Fish had the hit single Sellout. Shout out to them. They're still touring when it's not
Oh
COVID.
my God.
Yep. I went to their last concert here a couple years ago, which was pretty awesome still. They can still rock hard. But yeah, that's to say, you saw Alyssa Steamer, right? A female skateboarder. We had never seen that. That was nothing. And now, like, fast forward to today's skateboarding world, we see people like Leticia Buffoni that are making a living as females in skateboarding, and no one's saying like, oh, well, okay, but she's the girl, so she's not as good, and that she stands toe to toe equals with a lot of these guys.
Hell yeah.
If you're not familiar with Leticia Buffoni, I would suggest that you do so. But getting back to the game, that was my first experience, was getting the phone call from my buddy Matt and being like, yo, get your butt over here right now, because I just got the Tony Hawk game, right? So I don't know, what was your first experience kind of picking up the sticks and dropping in for the first time?
So for me, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, I can't recall if I initially played it on the PlayStation or the Nintendo 64. I want to say it was Nintendo 64 because I was just such a freaking diehard Nintendo fan. And
Sure.
later down the years, me and Sony, there's some things that they've done and said against Nintendo, which just kind of irked me the wrong way. So I am Nintendo above Sony all the way. Don't even get me started on that topic. I could talk on that for hours, but let's just
Perhaps
say,
a topic for another time.
Perhaps, but I'm pretty sure I played it on Nintendo 64, so I played it a little bit later. Now, growing up as an only child, all of the games that I played pretty much were first-person games. Like, you don't play with other people. It's just you on your adventure on your own. And I'm pretty introverted too, and I kind of like to keep to myself. So to me, that was perfect. I do remember Tony Hawk Pro Skater being one of the very few and only games that kind of took me out of that bubble and had me play with my friends in the neighborhood. We were actually ride our bikes to each other's houses and play Tony Hawk and play together. And it was one of those games that made it so much fun just because of the different tasks and the different freedoms that you had while playing this game. And it was just so completely refreshing and insane. Like the energy, I honestly, I can put myself in that bedroom where we would all play. We would play at one of my friends' houses in the neighborhood, and I can just feel the energy when we were able to complete like one of those hard tasks or just to have the best run of our lives, and just the excitement and like, oh, I can't wait to get my hands to that controller and go next.
Yeah, and I think that's like it hit at that time where we were still playing games on couches with each other, right? Like now, if you and I were to play the new Tony Hawk game that's coming out tomorrow, or today, if you're listening to the day that this drops, we would play that together from our own houses, right? So it's a little bit of a different kind of feel to it. But yeah, I mean, I don't remember hardly ever being alone playing that game. It was always with someone. It was always like trading the controller back and forth, passing it back and forth. Oh man, I can't get this part, and then you hand it to your buddy, and then your buddy nails it, and then pass it back. Oh, I can't get to that secret tape. Oh, well, here you go, right? So, and like you mentioned, like there was high score challenges. There was you had to collect the letters for skate. It was kind of like there was different modes kind of built into these levels, and these levels were pretty big for the time. I felt like they were huge for the time. I mean, we're talking PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64. So the idea that they had these big playable levels where you could get on the roof, where you could, jump this, or you can wall ride up this thing and go to these different areas, it was really awesome. And I'll take a step back to talk about the soundtrack for the first game. The soundtrack for the first game was awesome. So, I mean, you had, guys like Primus, you had Dead Kennedys, you had the Vandals, all these like classic like bands that were associated with skateboarding. And then there was this, little known band out of California called Goldfinger that became the hit song on the soundtrack with their song Superman. And we talked briefly before, I clicked the record button again. But, Goldfinger, the lead singer of Goldfinger, John Feldman, tells a story about how he was, Goldfinger was touring and opening for a major act, and nobody cared when they took the stage. Nobody danced, nobody moved. They're playing their asses off. And then they play Superman, and instantly the crowd goes, oh, I like that song. I played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. And then instantly the entire building erupts and starts dancing and playing to their music. So the impact of this game from both a video game perspective and also from a cultural perspective, we got big music coming out of this, and big, guys, John Feldman and Goldfinger still tour today. So, it's one of those things where livelihoods were changed completely. And I think too, like we mentioned earlier, having a person like Alyssa Steamer in the game, or Kareem Campbell, who's an African-American skateboarder, that kind of representation got more people involved in skateboarding and different action sports. And then, being able to get people into different music. I don't think the impact of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater in 1999 and in 2000 when it released on the Nintendo 64 can really be discredited. I think it's a really awesome game. I think it was huge, just period, across the board. And it was not the only one they made, Sandy.
Not at all. But going back to what you just said, so it's crazy to think that we were kind of able to be a part of that historic release in that game, and how the different impacts that it had in music, in pro skating, in video games, in pop culture, and we didn't even know it. Because back then, I mean, you're just playing a video game, you're playing it with your friends, and one of the main reasons why I think that game we were able to play with our friends, hands down, the music. I remember the music to this day.
Oh yeah.
And it just, because it was a free task kind of video game where you didn't have a specific kind of like adventure like they did in the later games, which to my opinion is why they didn't do so well. But we'll get to that. It made it more fun. It made it more like a party. Like the only games that I can really think of, I just said party, but yeah, Mario Party, when you're passing the controllers around.
Right.
Hey, with Tony Hawk, with that music, it just honestly felt like you were just having a party with your closest friends when we were very young and just having the time of our lives. And it's crazy to think that we were a part of that impact that that game was able to put in our childhood and adulthood
Yeah,
and
yeah,
adulthood.
yeah. I mean, I looking back on it now as an adult, I just say like, okay, because of Tony Hawk, because of X Games, because of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater being released, I got into skateboarding. I tried my damnedest. I was never any good at it. I went to skate parks. I rode ramps. You know, I got hurt. You know, and even like it changed how we went to the toy stores. I don't know if you remember Tech Decks, but
Yes.
every time
Oh
I got a toy
God.
at the toy store, it was a Tech Deck, and it was like, oh man, that one's a Birdhouse Tech Deck. That one's got Tony Hawk's logo on it, right? Or you know, that one's got Bucky Lasek, or you know, that one's got so and so, and so it became like this huge rooted part of our culture, and it happened without us even really knowing about it, right? It just kind of
Oh,
bled into it, and I think that just speaks to the nature of what skateboarding is, and how freeing the experience of skateboarding actually is. If you've never tried to learn how to skateboard, it's a very it's odd because it is an action sport, but it's also very expressive, and no two people skate the same way, right?
hmm
It's a creative thing. It's awesome. And we talk about professional wrestling. No two people wrestle the exact same way. It's an art form. It's self expression, and the same way skateboarding carries that way too. But not to get too much into the philosophical, because we have about 40 more Tony Hawk games to talk about.
Oh my gosh.
But no, we're
Stop.
not going to talk about all of them. Don't turn off the podcast. Stick with us here.
No.
Stick with us here. But I will call out here, and the amount of platforms that you can play Tony Hawk on. You want to take a stab at how many different systems or handhelds or things you can play them on?
Oh my gosh. No, hold on. All freaking all of them. I know they had a game. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 came out on GameCube. I know they had a Game Boy Color version. I know Xbox 360, the original Xbox, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. Oh my, everything. I don't know
So
the number. What's the number, Josh?
there are 20 different platforms, 20 that
Oh
you
my
can
gosh.
play a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater game on. Sandy, you can't do that with any other game series. I'm willing to bet. And what's crazy is, it, I don't know if you remember the shortly lived Engage handheld system, but there was a Tony Hawk game on that too, so that counts.
The
There's
what now?
the Engage, N dash
Oh, that's,
Gauge.
yep. I was like, what?
Yeah, that thing.
It came back to me.
If we ever talk about systems and handhelds that didn't work, a la Virtual Boy or ColecoVision, if you want to go
Virtual
really
Boy
old
was
school,
ahead of its time. Damn it,
it
I hate that failed.
it was it was ahead of its time, but also caused a lot of back issues. But that's not what we're talking about today.
Don't get me started, Josh.
But no, I know that's maybe that's something for another time. I do get requests for throwback systems to cover here. So if you want to hear us talk about Virtual Boy, let us know. Um, it might be lumped in with some other things because I don't know your experience with it, Sandy, but mine was limited because I was like, man, I'm done with this. I played Mario Tennis like 3 times. I was like, man, I can't play this. I'm not gonna because
Oh.
you had to kind of like lay prone like you're a sniper in the military, just because the stand was terrible. We're getting off topic here, but just for a little sneak preview if we ever decide to talk about Virtual Boy in the future.
There you go.
But ironically, Virtual Boy did not have a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater game because it failed before it could. So they had a fantastic 2 follow-ups to the original game. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 are 2 of the highest rated games, not only on the PlayStation 2, but of all time.
Mhm.
I think IGN at the time, and Game Informer at the time, I was a big Game Informer kid. I think both of those publications gave Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 like a 9.5 and like 2 a 10, if my memory serves. Um, but I mean, they were just flawless. And what I appreciate is when you have a video game series that you're starting, it would have been so easy for them to say, let's just do Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 again, but with some different skaters, or maybe a couple new moves, or just different levels, right? but they continue to push the boundaries. They continue to innovate. They added, things like manualing for combos and reverts and different things like that to expand what you really could do. It didn't have to just be linking grinds and linking, wall rides and things like that. And they did expand the roster. They did, so, 2 and 3 were awesome. I don't know how much you got to play those, Sandy.
I remember playing them, but I just my memory just does not serve me right when it comes to it, especially when putting them apart from one another. They added things to the original gameplay, which was a safe route, and I guess I know to me, if a game or like even a band, as time goes, if you're staying the same, you're not progressing.
Right.
But some people enjoy the fact that when their favorite band changes the way they sound musically, or when their pro wrestler changes a character and it's not the same person anymore, some people don't like that. For the first few games, it worked out in their favor by not making too crazy of changes. The gameplay itself stayed about the same. They added a few new things, new music, new tasks, new things that you can do, but overall the gameplay stayed pretty similar.
Yeah,
which
so
was
the first
safe route. And
the first 4 games, the numerical releases, so Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 through 4 follow the kind of same format. They're all really well done. Eventually you get the Creative Skater mode, which I spent so much time on. But I pulled up the scores for those games on Metacritic. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 has a 98 on Metacritic, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 has a 97 on Metacritic, and then 4 has a 94. So that was, those games are all huge, huge success. And then you start to see this branch off, right? Where, like, to go back to music, maybe your favorite band has been operating within who they are. They're figuring out, some new chord structures. They're figuring out how to play their songs better, make some new hits that way. But then they release an album that is completely different. Some of the fans really like it, say, "Oh, that's cool. This is different. I'm behind this." And then some of the fans say, "Wow, this is pure shit, and I will never listen to this band again." And that's what we got with Tony Hawk, which they didn't even call it Pro Skater. They called it Tony Hawk Underground. And Tony Hawk Underground was a very, very, very big risk for them to take because it wasn't the traditional Tony Hawk formula. It wasn't the Pro Skater formula. And it added things like walking around with your board in your hand and climbing ladders and doing things like that, which at the time felt really cool. But looking back on it, it left behind the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater gameplay, and it kind of became a victim of the times because now Bam Margera's in the games, and now we're incorporating a lot of the cast of Jackass, including in Tony Hawk's Underground 2, you play as Steve-O riding a mechanical bull. And
what?
Yeah, if you didn't play Tony Hawk's Underground 2, you do not have to. But every level had their own secret character that you could play. And when the Barcelona level, you play as Steve-O riding a mechanical bull. And doing grinds with a mechanical bull is about just ranks up there with the stupidest shit you can do in a video game, period. And
I'm so intrigued.
you could probably get the game cheap at a local game store if you wanted to. I don't recommend it, but but we see a departure here, and obviously, it seems like you kind of dropped off when we went to the underground route here, Sandy. Is that right?
You're absolutely right. I may have dropped off at like Pro Skater 3. Like I said, I can't really distinguish them very well. The first ones were just done so well. They kind of had the same format, same gameplay, and it just kept getting better and better by adding things that just enhance the game overall and the gameplay without changing too much. And then, yes, of course, when Underground came, lots of changes. You have the silliness that you just described, and then the adventure mode. Do you recall when those kind of came about? I know.
Yeah, so that started with.
I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, that started with Underground, right? Where you could walk around because the levels were massive. and you basically walked around and got side quests like an RPG style from different, people, city folk, or like Bear Margera standing there is like, hey man, go graffiti this wall by doing a wall ride. And I mean, it's silly shit. Like it really is. Um, and I think if you ever watched Viva La Bam, I'm pretty sure there's an appearance by Don Vito, Bam's uncle. I mean, it's all kinds of it's really like I
In
said,
the game?
yeah, and I'm maybe my memory is just pushing all those together because when I think Bam Margera, that's what I think. But a lot of that is just um, it became almost a victim of popular culture of what was on
Yeah.
MTV at that time.
It's one of those
But
things where, yeah, you have this super popular game. People are buying it no matter what. Let's just add all this extra shit, make more money, get more money
right,
out of it. And
yeah,
it just didn't pay off.
yeah, and so we have the undergrounds. Um, they're kind of they're mid. There's kind of a mixed reception, like I said, and then we get Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, um, which kind of kept that thing, that same kind of walk around and do things. But then for whatever reason, they decided in American Wasteland, oh, let's also have you ride a BMX bike too. So you could switch between BMX bikes and skateboards. And like, I don't know if you ever played Dave Mirra's Freestyle BMX, which was made by Activision and modeled in the same way that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was. But that was if you want to play a BMX game, go play the Dave Mirra game. And actually, excuse me, I misspoke. Matt Hoffman had to get the Pro BMX, which was made by Activision, which just copied Pro Skater. But Dave Mirra
Mm-hmm.
had a game out. Rest in peace, Dave Mirra. Um, and Matt Hoffman, the Condor, of course, had a BMX game out. But then with Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, they're like, hey, fuck it, put it in. you know, you want to ride a bike? Ride a bike. You want to ride your skateboard? Ride your skateboard. You want to walk around? Walk around. And it was just like, man, it's just kind of, oh, I don't know about this. And it was when we really started to see a decline. And I don't want to go through game by game here, but American Wasteland, Project 8, which was just because it was the eighth game that they'd made, um, and then Proving Ground, all just kind of fell flat. There's nothing to talk about with them. They're not good. When we were used to seeing these games rank in the nines, and those games started kind of getting down into like the fives and the sixes on those publications. And for a big release game like Tony Hawk to get a really low score in a Game Informer, a magazine that is notoriously well known for pumping those numbers up for the big release games, um, and giving out higher ratings to keep to drive sales for those games. For them to turn around and be like, we can't, our journalistic integrity at this video game magazine, we can't even give you a fluff number. Like, this game's a 5 or this game's a 4. And they just kept
Holy
getting
shit.
worse and worse, until we really, and I cannot emphasize this enough, we really hit the bottom of the barrel with the motion controls, skateboard controllers. Um, they did 3. I only remember 1, but they did
They did
3
3?
games. They did 3 games, Sandy, using a skateboard peripheral.
What? I don't even remember this at all.
I'm envious of you because I do remember them. Um, you know, Sandy and I both in our past worked at a giant retail store. It's a square shape, blue paint, and they have a yellow logo. Rhymes with Shmeshmai. But not the very lead. We worked there at different times. We actually worked at the same store, but I left, and then she kind of went there, and then we worked at a different company, but at different times. And when I left, she came there. It's kind of this weird kind of follow the leader game that we've been playing without knowing each other. But when I was at that store, right when I was at that retail store, the Nintendo rep came in because they were really excited to show off this new skateboard peripheral for the new Tony Hawk game, exclusive to the Nintendo Wii. And it was like, yes, Nintendo has their exclusive Tony Hawk game now. And the skateboard peripheral never worked, ever. We literally installed it in the store, and she's like, "Go ahead, try it out." And 4 of us tried it, and it was pure garbage. And
Oh.
apparently, they decided to just triple down on it and make 3 of them using a skateboard peripheral. But like I said, I remember one, maybe in the back of my mind, if I stretch real hard, I remember a second one with like a reinforced skateboard peripheral because people were breaking them. Because hello, you're standing on it. Um, it was not good. It was not good. It goes the Tony Hawk skateboard peripheral goes into the rubbish bin of bad peripheral items, bad accessories throughout time. It goes in with the Power Glove. It goes in with the Duck Hunt Light Zapper. It goes in with the roll and rocker. It goes in with you think of a bad accessory that didn't work the way it was supposed to. Like did you ever play the game Track and Field on the Nintendo? They had the mat, like you literally had a mat where you would like run in place on the mat, and then you were supposed to be like doing actual track and field events on this mat, and so you would literally just sit there and like run your feet, right? Well, guess what? It didn't work when you ran on your feet. So every single one of us would be laying on our bellies and just drum rolling on the controller. Well, listen, you still got your arm workout in, okay? But it wasn't responsive to your feet, and you couldn't move your feet fast enough to beat the AI in the game. But that's a sidetrack there. So, but I had to say, just never ever bother. If you see a local video game store, they have a bundle where they're selling you like Downhill Jam and the skateboard peripheral, and it's super cheap, like $15. Go buy yourself like Chipotle for lunch instead. It will it'll have a longer lasting positive effect on you than playing this game. I promise.
All right, here's my positive spin on that. This is only on the Nintendo Wii, right? Because at that time, yeah. It wasn't when did PlayStation try to do it wasn't even to that point.
The PlayStation Move was later, yeah. And then Kinect was around the same time. And I'm not a Kinect or a Move. I hate motion controls for the most part. I think the Switch has done a good job with it, but that's a topic for another time.
Oh yeah. My positive spin on that is that Nintendo, they're so great at trying new things. Sometimes they fail, but hey, when they fail, they get back up even faster, even stronger, even better. So I will always have Nintendo's back, damn it, for having them try. So I actually do want to try that motion skater thing you're talking about. Maybe I can find it.
I'm sure there's a look. I'm sure, yeah, if you do find it and you do try it, maybe, have Logan, your boyfriend, videotape you trying it, and we'll throw it up on Twitter. And then we could see you try to play Downhill Jam.
I'm on a hunt.
Yeah, I mean, good luck with that, right? So, but and so after that, they did go back to a numerical release, kind of back to the basics. But before that, they got their lunch eaten by another skateboard franchise. And this might be the only time that we talk about this series, and I want to give it its due. We won't do a deep dive into all of the games, but it was just called Skate, and it was produced by EA Black Box, and I absolutely loved the pure skateboard feel of Skate because it was a more traditional sim. It wasn't arcade. You weren't doing 1260 varial heel flips. You weren't doing triple front flips. You were doing quite literally very mechanical. You were doing real skateboard moves, and when you were able to link like a flip into a grind and a flip out, that felt so good. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. What was your experience with that series, Sandy?
Not very much. To me, it was actually quite difficult. I don't know why. I just could never freaking get it. So I didn't own it. I remember when it came out, actually years later, it may not have been the original one. I would go over to my friend, I think it was my friend Josh's house. Oh, so many Joshes that I know.
Different Josh. Hey, we get around.
My buddy Josh, my buddy Josh Santiago, and I think my friend Riley, like they would have it, and they would get together, and they would have people over, and I would just kind of like watch them play. And a couple of times I got to maybe go around playing it, maybe at my other friend's house, but I never had enough time to really figure out what the heck was going on. But I just remember watching it. It's like, yeah, it was skateboarding video game at its purest form, completely mechanical, very and it was engineered that way. Exactly what you said. It's taking it back to the basics. No fancy, goofy video game stuff. So they even
Right.
kind of went above and beyond that initial pro skater, Tony Hawk's pro skater style.
Yeah, because it's Pro Skater, like you said, it was very arcade. It was very, try and get a million points. And then Skate was actually spearheaded by Rob Dyrdek, who from his MTV shows. I forget what the name of his current show is, where he watches the stupid people on the internet crash and burn.
Ridiculousness.
Ridiculousness. Thank you. So Rob Dyrdek, who is a pro skateboarder, very involved with DC Shoes and different things like that. He kind of spearheaded this project, and I really enjoyed it. And it was a vacuum that this pro skater games created for themselves of, hey, there needs to be a skateboard game out in the market, and we can't make a good one now for some reason. And then he stepped in, EA comes out with a couple of bangers. Skate 1 through 3 were all really good. You know, it's one of those things that you're thankful that you got it. And there's a rumored Skate 4 in production, so that might be coming back, which everyone's pretty stoked about. That was like a big thing on Twitter a few months ago. But yeah, so I don't want to just gloss over the fact that Tony Hawk did have competition throughout the years. Most of it was pretty bad, but Skate was one that stood out and people really liked and still really like. I mean, Disney.
Josh, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you ever play Jet Set Radio?
This is gonna hurt my cred some, but no, I did not.
Oh, I have
I
to
know.
show you this article because I saw it making the rounds not too long ago. I think it's because, Tony Hawk doing the new video game coming out tomorrow or already out, depending on when you heard our podcast. But Jet Set Radio was so cool, and the fact, like we mentioned earlier, how Tony Hawk had this like alternative lifestyle type of influence where maybe in the later games you were able to tag a wall, and they kind of incorporated that into the older games, or even going back to the beginning Tony Hawk Pro Skater games where it was, okay, this is alternative culture when it comes to skateboarding and listening to punk and thrash and listening to that kind of music. It was all the alternative, and that's pretty much, like you mentioned, it shaped your life, it shaped my life some. But Jet Set Radio is one that I felt like I can't go unnoticed, and a lot of people didn't actually get to play this game. I believe it originally released in the Sega. So was it the Dreamcast?
It was the Dreamcast, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep, in the Dreamcast, and you were actually skating on roller skates. So it's not pro skating, but they go around and they tag, and the music for that was kind of very similar to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, where it was just so different, and some underground music was in there, so you're able to discover new bands, new songs, new music. And the whole point of it, I wish I still had it. I would freaking play it right now. You would skate around town, you would do kind of like an arcade thing, but you would tag the walls and you would do tricks with your rollerblades, and you kind of are in this urban atmosphere. It was such a cool, fun game, and I am going to try to hunt it down so that we can play it, because I feel like this is one of those very, very indie, very small games in that similar pro skating, underground, alternative kind of genre, I guess you could name it. And it came out in 2000 if I'm not mistaken. I have to pull up more information, but it kind of just popped in my head because I know I saw an article going around on Facebook saying that, hey, yeah, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is the shit, but also if you didn't play Jet Set Radio, you missed out on a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a buddy that's a really big fan of that game, and like you said, not a lot of people got to play it because the Dreamcast was, and this is perhaps a good topic for another show, but the Dreamcast had a weird release time. It was ahead of what the generation was. They tried to jump the gun, and it was expensive. Not a lot of families could afford it, and the controller was wonky. It's a love it or hate it controller, flat out. And in a lot of ways, the GameCube was too. But yeah, I mean, the influence of other games trying to jump in, right? I mentioned those BMX games tried to capitalize on it. There was a game called Aggressive Inline that tried to jump in on it. The game is not very good. It's very bad. You can literally probably find it for 99 cents to $2 at your local game store. But eventually Shaun White, they tried to make a Shaun White skateboarding game because maybe Tony Hawk's not marketable anymore. Maybe do a younger face. Well, Shaun White also had a pro snowboarding game Snowboarding kind of became a big thing when the Winter X Games came out, and all these different
Right.
games are made because of Pro Skater in '99, and I truly believe that. Disney made a skateboarding game. Did you know that, Sandy?
I had no idea. What?
Yeah, so Disney makes this game called Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is a skateboarding game where you're, taking like Woody and Buzz and young Tarzan and Simba, and you're skateboarding with them. True story. Um, but it was like it was dumbed down for kids. It was all like one button skateboarding, right? You could turn on one button skateboarding, so you could just sit there and mash the A button and get a bunch of points. And like, okay, like there's a level where you have to fight like Emperor Zurg by like, oh, you have to go and grind these things, and it shoots weapons at them, and it's some goofy stuff. But I just bring it up to say like there was some wild stuff that came out of the fact that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was so successful, because thank God Disney never tried to make another one again. I remember renting it like it came out when I was like 13, 14 years old. I was like, well, I don't know what else to play. So I was at Blockbuster, RIP Blockbuster. Um, and I just picked it up for like a quick rental. And I was like, I was done with it in maybe 3 hours, 4 hours. I beat the game. So
What?
yeah, it was pretty small. But I will say, weirdly enough, they did incorporate music that wasn't Disney music. So like "Sell Out" by Real Big Fish was on that game. It was really strange to be listening to Real Big Fish and doing kickflips with Buzz Lightyear. So it's a wild experience. If you find it, maybe give yourself an hour of fun. It was just weird shit. I don't
That's so
know.
funny.
It really is. And so we're talking. We do all these different things, but they decided, okay, we figured out what the problem was. The problem was is that people liked our numerical releases and not all the other shit that we did. So they shoehorned and half-assed Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5, which has Lil Wayne as a playable character. Did you know? Did you ever think that you would have a skateboarding game where Lil Wayne was a playable character, Sandy?
Damn it. No. I had no idea this happened.
It did, and I
But
actually
you know
own the
what?
game.
To be fair on Little Wayne's point, so he actually, we had the skateboarding competitions. I forget what it's freaking called. I was never, but once I was a young adult, I didn't really get too much into that. But he would go over to the skate park of Tampa for the competitions there.
He
Like
would,
he
yeah,
loves it. So
yeah.
he's
I
kind of
think
legit,
he's,
but still, I don't need
yeah.
him in my video games.
No. It was not a anything that I needed. Maybe if we were talking about like the Def Jam fighting games, Lil Wayne would be something that you would be excited to play as, right? But you know, who knows? But yeah, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 comes out, and it is the worst rated numerical series entry by a long shot. The Metascore on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 is 38, which is a severe drop off from the 94 that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 had. So, they shoehorn stuff. They try to do rail grab, what they call it, like rail snap-ons, where if you were over the rail, you would push the grind button and it would shoot you straight down onto the rail. Which I've played it for maybe 2 hours tops. I own it. My son Nolan wanted to get into playing skateboard video games because he saw some like YouTube videos of some guys skateboarding. He asked if there was any games, so I went and bought Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5, and I've not let him play it because it is pretty unplayable. But
Oh,
Tony
no.
Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake is coming out now. We're recording on the day now that it's releasing. We're very early in the morning now. And when we get off and are done recording, I might have to go play it a little bit because it's downloading to my PS4 right now. But they said, okay, none of this shit is working. What are we gonna do? And then they got Tony, they got together, and they said, listen, let's re-release 1 and 2. Let's completely do it from the ground up. It's not Activision making the game anymore. It's a new publisher, but they have all the original source code. So they've completely revamped it. They've created this giant roster of people, and what's really cool is that it has the guys and gals from the original games, but at their present day ages. So
That's
Tony
awesome.
Hawk's got his gray hair. It's pretty cool. And I've been talking to you about it a little bit. I played the demo quite a bit. The demo is only the warehouse level from the first one. The only playable character is Tony Hawk. but you are playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater as it is intended. There's no more walking around with your skateboard in your hand. There's no more, Bam Margera telling you to go smack somebody on the ass. It's just that's not part of it anymore, right?
No more Little Wayne.
No, well, I mean, I don't know. He might be a playable character in there. I don't know.
Oh no,
Yeah,
could you imagine?
there's always secret skaters, right? There's always the special guys that you go through, and it'll be interesting to see what additions there are, what characters there are. There's a long-standing secret character in the games. His named Officer Dick. If you know anything about skate culture has always butted heads with cops. A lot of it has to do with
Anti-authority. Hell yeah.
right, exactly, anti-authority, and also cops would chase skaters off of spots. Like, no, you can't jump your skateboard down that 20-step spot there. There's people walking. What if you run into them, right? Which as a kid, I'm like, man, you know what? Cops suck because they won't let us skate wherever we want. And now I'm kind of like, as an adult, I'm like, man, I guess it kind of makes sense that you don't want to kick your board into somebody, right? That's just walking down the street. But there's Officer Dick, Darth Maul was a playable character at one point, Spider-Man. So it'll be interesting to see who we get as our secret characters to unlock. But there's tons of pro skaters. Obviously, there's probably going to be a pretty robust creative skater thing. Next week, maybe I'll just drop a quick, hey, was what it was. This is how good it is. Kind of a quick review next week. But I mean, I think for me, Sandy, I could talk all night about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, but I won't. But it was a huge part of my life. I know it impacted your life, and whether or not you knew it or not, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater impacted the world around you, and it shaped what happened on in MTV. It shaped what happened on ESPN. There was a entire channel that Disney created for the X Games and for Action Sports Games that was called EXPN. It was short-lived, but it still happened. So all of these things, all this culture that happened in the late 90s, early 2000s, it shaped my life. It shaped the music that I listened to. It shaped the bumps and bruises that I got as a kid. And then when I had the bumps and bruises, I'd go inside, I'd pick up the controller, and I'd shred a little bit on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. And that's why I wanted to talk about it, because with the new one coming out, it brings me back. The first song that plays when you turn on the demo is Superman by Goldfinger. So it's like a time warp back to childhood. I'm really excited to play the new one. Like I said, next week I'll talk about it briefly, because I've obviously talked way too much about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater for this episode, and probably enough for all future episodes combined. But with that, Sandy, we typically sign off with a game that we played or a match that we watched. What do you got this week?
Oh my gosh, you got me today. I don't think I have anything for you that I've watched this week. What did I watch this week? I'm gonna let you go first. Let me think on this week.
Sure. Yeah. So this week was a pretty interesting week in wrestling. We have an outdoor show in New Japan at a baseball stadium, which I thought was pretty awesome. That was the Summer Stronghold Jingu, and
Naito.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're both going to the same. I think we're both going to the same spot. So I'll let you talk about it first. But it wasn't the best match of the card. It wasn't the best, but it was a really cool, fun match. Kind of correcting, replacing, sending New Japan right on the right track right before G1. And that was Naito against Evil in the main event.
I freaking cried. Naito, for you guys out there listening, he is one of my top 5 favorite wrestlers of all time. I absolutely adore that man. To me, the whole Evil winning both championships not too long ago, to me, that was just a tragedy. I was blown away. The turn, I guess, kind of makes sense because Los Ingobernables de Japón, they're freaking baby faces. Yeah, they've been called heels this entire time, but there's no way they needed to be baby faces. The way, I guess, the storyline kind of played out, whatever, it happened. I was really upset that Naito lost titles, but yeah, this was a redemption to that. Everything, Sonata coming out to help, and Bushi coming out to help as well, which was
Right.
one of the big questions last time. It's like, why did no one come out while this was happening last time? Only Takahashi came out at the end.
Yeah.
Takahashi, yes.
Yep.
And to me, that was just kind of like, what? They're so close knit. Why? How could it allow this to happen? So it was definitely a redemption story here. Like you said, the match itself was good. It was nothing spectacular. I think Naito gave it his all, and Evil as a wrestler, you know what? To me personally, I believe he's a little limited, but when he wants to go, he can go.
Yeah, I think if you listen to this week's Keeping It Strong Style, Jeremy and Josh number one, we call him, of course, Josh number one because I'm the second Josh on the podcast network. They do a really good job kind of outlining kind of what the problem was with Evil in the main event picture, and it's not that Evil's a bad wrestler; it's that he's not a main event IWGP champion wrestler. And I think definitely go listen to Keeping It Strong Style this week because they do a pretty good job of laying out what the not to steal the name of the New Japan show, but the summer struggle of having Evil as the champion and all these multi-man matches and different things. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really cool, powerful way to end that show. It's a really unique show. They haven't done an outside show in a really long time. And of course,
over 20 years, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so we get, Naito posing tranquilo at the end with fireworks going off.
That was
and of
beautiful.
Course, he's a well-known baseball fan. And so he's in a baseball stadium winning back his championships. All is right in the New Japan world as we head towards G1 there. Of course, definitely
right in the world.
Yeah, definitely tune into Keeping It Strong Style for all your New Japan stuff, especially for the G1 coverage. I don't know that there's awards for that, but if there was awards or a Slammy or something to throw for covering the G1, Keeping It Strong Style is the place to go and listen to that. And with that, I do want to
check them out.
Definitely. And Josh and Jeremy know more about wrestling. Have forgotten more about wrestling than I will ever know. So definitely check those guys out. Check out One Nation Radio also. I want to plug those guys. Always doing a great job breaking down the weekly stuff that happens here in the U.S. with WWE and AEW. And they also talk about Stardom some because James, who we affectionately refer to as Dr. Joshi, loves Stardom quite a bit. And then, Ricky and Clive breaking down some stuff. And then also check out All Things Elite for all things AEW. And we have a new show that's launched on the podcast network too, covering Lucha Underground. So definitely, stay tuned to your Social Suplex Podcast Network thread. Stay tuned to the show threads. Download us wherever you get your podcasts. I do want to remind you again to go to manscaped.com, use the promo code SUPLEX to save 20% and get free shipping. And of course, if you're one of the next 3 people to make a purchase with the promo code SUPLEX, send us that receipt, that proof of purchase to socialsuplex@gmail.com, and you will get all out for free. And Sandy, before we sign off, I do want to make sure that we point everyone to our Pro Wrestling Tees store for the Social Suplex Podcast Network, because not only because you can get your Keeping It Strong Style shirt, not only because you can get your One Nation Radio shirt, and not only because you can get your network shirt, but because we have a shirt on there. You can get your official 8-Bit Suplex shirt. It's pretty cheap. It's only $20, and it's unique as far as wrestling or wrestling podcast shirts go because it's not a black shirt.
Oh my God! All wrestling is just so known, and for me too, with the music that I listen to, all black shirts. It's so hard to find a different color shirt. So we have that for you. Definitely pick it up. And this weekend, remember, they are doing 20% off of your purchase with code Labor Day. You can buy not just our shirt, but all the shirts that Josh just mentioned for the Social Suplex Network. Definitely support your favorite podcast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and if you check us out on Twitter, it's at 8Big Suplex. You check Sandy at Sailor Zelda, myself at, I think it's Laughlin Joshua. I don't know why I did that. It's not my entire last name. It's not, and then it's my full first name. I don't know what I was doing. We've mentioned before, I think on air, and maybe we haven't, but we've talked about it, Sandy. I am horrible at Twitter, but I'm getting better, and I have not tweeted from my personal something for 8-Bit, and I've not tweeted anything 8-Bit from my vice versa. So I'm getting the hang of it. But I'll make sure that we have all of our usernames in there. Check us out on Instagram at socialsuplex, at socialsuplex on Twitter as well. And then, check out Sandy's matches on fight.tv.
Yeah.
I don't have any matches for you to point at me, and I don't have any other projects. So just, watch Sandy a bunch. And then other than that, I got nothing else. Sandy, you got anything else before we say goodbye?
Josh, I wanted to show you my beautiful background on my iPhone. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yes, I can. It's Naito with the
It's Naito!
Naito with the fireworks. We'll post that on the 8-Fit Suplex Twitter there. Sandy's phone background, and she did show it to me through Skype. It is in fact Naito posing with fireworks. My background is just children, my children specifically. If it was somebody else's children, it would be pretty
That'd
different.
be weird.
So
Oh, she's so cute. Oh,
I
she's
got
so cute.
I got cute kids. I know. Well, we're dilly-dallying because we're late and we're tired and we're getting to the sign-off point. So I don't got anything else. Sandy, you good?
No, we are good. I can't wait for you guys to listen to next week's episode. Please give us feedback. Let us know what you want to hear from us, what you guys want us to talk about, video games, and of course we're going to be covering Impact Wrestling next week. Can't wait for that show. It's going to be a banger. There's going to be some good matches. I can just feel it. But definitely interact with us. We'd love to hear from you. Check out our t-shirts. Check out our socials. Make sure you subscribe to our feeds. Remember, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you get your podcasts. You'll be able to find us. And thank you so much for the support. We love you guys.
Yep. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you this time next week.
Bye.
Bye.